Hey everybody, this is Aaron Spivey with Yoga and Broccoli, and I'm here with Cory McCarthy, aka the Vegan Berserker. How's it going, Cory?
It's going great, man. It's going great.
So your channel has been taken off, and I found you through the vegan bodybuilding and nutrition page, and I always noticed that your posts were very evidence-based, and you seem to really kind of dig through the actual nutrition studies, which is kind of uncommon among a lot of vegans. So
it is uncommon amongst vegans. I think it's uncommon amongst a lot of people in general. I mean, even amongst bodybuilders in the gym, for instance, like this is the way they got the term bro science from. They go by what works for them and they assume it's going to work for everybody. So yeah, I mean, I don't settle myself on that. I like to find out why things work and how they broadly work, because if it's broadly working, there's more of a chance it's going to work for a range for everybody, as opposed to one dude who might be an outlier of some kind. So
yeah, and unfortunately, I think a lot of bodybuilders have historically been a little bit too eager to experiment with their own bodies, and it looks like there's a lot of negative consequences that have arisen out of taking things like fat burners and weird substances. So I understand you're all natural and you're not
100% no drugs. Yeah, I mean, I do take caffeine, and I mean, I've experimented with things like yohimbine, which is another herb. It's a thermogenic, but I mean, I only ever use herbs, coffee, amino acids, things like that. I've never taken any chemical drugs. So I've never taken like a steroid or a pro-hormone or a growth hormone or any of those things. So, I mean, but I have experimented with a number of herbs, not drugs, but like marijuana, but I mean like herbs as in, I've done tribulus before, which is is very useless basically.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I've heard a little bit about it. I haven't experimented myself. So yeah, let's, I'm just curious about the amino acid topic. I just, I haven't looked into it enough to know, which ones are better than others, or how, if there might be any negative effects from taking too much. So can you tell us a little bit about amino acid supplementation?
Sure. I mean, when it comes down to it, amino acid supplementation, I mean, you're going to get, if you're eating enough protein, you're getting enough calories, and you're just trying to build muscle. And if you're in a caloric surplus, there's not really much of a need to supplement with additional amino acids. And it can actually cause, there's some research to show it can cause depression. It can affect with, I think it's serotonin, if you take excessive amino acids. So you're going to get it from your diet. So you're fine if you're eating enough calories. Now, where I do advocate amino acid consumption is if you're strictly dieting down for like a show, or you're trying to lean out and your calories are a bit lower, your protein might be a bit lower, then you might benefit from the additional amino acid consumption, because it's been shown to increase fat loss, branched chain amino acids and leucine, things like that. Vegans, there is research to show that vegans benefit from like additional, they call it leucine spiking, where you like maybe take a bit of leucine with every meal. You can do it with a protein powder, or you can do it with just throwing some leucine in some water and drink it with a meal. They show that it can actually help double the protein synthesis of vegan bodybuilders. So it's something I do advise my clients to do. I mean, not excessively, just like an extra 5 grams of leucine per meal, or with a post-workout shake, just to ensure that leucine consumption. The reason I say this is because there are some plant foods like beans, like black beans, for instance. Not all. Tofu is great, but black beans, for instance, can be a little deficient in leucine compared to tofu, or compared to if you're not a vegan, like beef or something. Although tofu is actually superior to beef on the amino acid digestibility score. So,
okay. I've seen a lot of stuff about soy, on kind of both sides of the spectrum. A lot of people say it's like one of the worst things you could ever put in your body. And, some people say it's totally fine. Some people say, kind of take it easy, maybe it's okay if you have, a certain amount, but, don't go too crazy with it. So what are your thoughts about soy in general?
Okay. When it comes to soy, I eat a lot of soy. I eat currently 522 grams of protein from tofu 522 grams of tofu per day at the moment. And I also get an additional 2 scoops of protein powder post-workout that contain 50% soy per scoop. So each scoop's 30 grams by weight. So it would be 15 grams of soy in that weight, essentially. It's 50% in the makeup. And I mean, anecdotally, I don't have any problems. I don't get itchy nipples, or I don't lactate. I haven't gotten like gynecomastia or anything like that. Now, the reason why I say it's not a problem is based on very, very, very large scale, well-controlled, peer-reviewed research on healthy men. And I have to emphasize this because if you're unhealthy, for instance, so like maybe you're somebody who has an allergy to soy, or maybe you have just had some kind of pre-existing condition where soy can exacerbate it, it might not be a good idea for you to overload on the soy. But in healthy men, and there was 53, I think it's 53 clinical studies, all well-controlled on healthy men. And in this meta-analysis, they found that there was no evidence of any negative effect on anabolic hormones in the body, testosterone, growth hormone, raising an estrogen or anything, from consuming soy or its isoflavones. They did another study that involved 9 clinical trials, and again on healthy men, where they were eating soy at a rate higher than Asian males do, considerably higher than, with absolutely no effect of feminization on their bodies. So, the whole soy thing has been and these are from fertility and sterility journals and hormone journals. They aren't like some vegan. It's not like there's some kind of vegan bias here. The research was published by in a reputable fertility journal. At least one of them was. The other one was published in a different journal, I think in some kind of a hormone journal. I don't remember the exact name of the journal, but it was a journal that focuses on hormone health. And neither of them found any evidence that soy has any negative effect on healthy men. So I don't see any reason. I've not had any problems anecdotally, and I don't see anything in the research. And all the studies that seem to point to problems with soy tend to be done on unhealthy people, so there might be some other culprits, so they're not well controlled, or it's done on rats, and rats metabolize isoflavones and phytoestrogens differently than humans do. And that's not only from the same fertility journal study, they mentioned that about rats, but also from the American Cancer Society when it comes to breast cancer. They said you can't go by rodent research and apply it to human females because there is a disparity between the results.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot, when things have certain effect on animals, it doesn't mean it's going to have the same effect on human beings.
Exactly. And you find this with supplements too. Like, for instance, a lot of these companies that market on tribulus, they market on tribulus working in like rats or in dogs, that kind of thing. But when they've done research on tribulus in human beings, outside of some very strange Russian studies, which we haven't been able to reproduce, and we don't know what the controls are, they're very old studies, there's just been no positive effect of tribulus terrestris on testosterone levels in human males. But it works in animals, in some animals.
All right.
There you go.
So I won't be buying any tribulus anytime soon, I guess.
Yeah, don't waste your money on it. Yeah.
Have you looked into the effect of like the pesticides they're spraying on the soybeans? Most of the soy is genetically modified, and they spray it heavily.
It is. I mean, I buy organic soy. I buy non-GMO project soy. I exclusively from Whole Foods markets. So what modification might have been done to it has already been done to it, and the way they're currently producing the crop is in organic non-GMO standards. So I don't know to what effect that has. I mean, there was a large Italian paper. I forgot what they called it. It was like the Felizi paper, something like that, which examined. It was the meta-analyses of over 1,000 studies on GMOs, and they didn't find it was either neutral or beneficial results on health. They didn't find anything. So in some ways, I wonder if it's a conspiracy theory. A lot of this GMO crap. I mean, I can't say for sure, but I mean, I don't buy exclusively, organic. I buy conventional when it's on offer. But I don't know. It seems like the research on that, people are going to scream bias or government conspiracy and say that it's just. But you know what? I go by the research, and if the research show any flaws, and large scale, I mean thousands of studies, it doesn't scare me, to be perfectly honest. I mean, but when it comes to soy, I would just say, like, if you're going to really do it, I mean, you can get organic tofu for cheap. Like even Whole Foods Market has, like, for $1.99, you can get like a 15-ounce pack, water pack of tofu, of extra firm organic tofu. That $1.99, that's really cheap. If you consider that versus the cost per, ounce of steak, for instance, if you buy ground beef, it's cheaper by a long shot.
So you're probably spending a lot less money than most of the guys in the gym.
Well, I was a vegetarian for the longest time. I was a vegetarian from 2002 through 13, and when I went vegan, my grocery bill cut by at least a quarter. And I know, obviously, I remember when I was an omnivore before 2002. I also was seeing a girl in 2000. She's vegan now, but the girl the girl I'm with, she wasn't when we were together first, and it was by virtue of my debates that she actually switched over to veganism, because she couldn't defeat my debates.
Okay.
But I obviously I saw the food, that her cost of food and everything like that she had to eat, and I can tell you, I was spending half as much, I think, on vegan food. I mean, it's so cheap to buy tofu and buy beans and buy frozen vegetables and frozen fruits, and it's so cheap. And then where you get fresh fruits, things like bananas and apples are friggin' dirt cheap. And people are like, well, but vegetables are so expensive. It's like, look, buy frozen veggies, buy frozen broccoli, frozen spinach, I buy frozen vegetables. I don't buy fresh vegetables hardly ever, except for making a salad. I mean, and that's once in a blue moon. So, buy frozen where possible, and then splurge on things like avocados or fresh, bananas or fresh apples or fresh oranges. But when it comes to your berries and even your melons, you can get that stuff frozen, chopped in a bag, and store it in your freezer. And you also less. I mean, this is something I found with strawberries. You have less of a risk of opening up and finding mold in like a quarter of the package of strawberries.
Right.
So
right. Yeah,
it's not that expensive.
Yeah, and I found a lot of times it's a better deal to get frozen, fruits and vegetables, and a lot of times they're frozen at the proper time, when they're really ripe. Whereas, when you go to the store, it's something that's been sitting for, a couple of weeks at a time.
Yeah, it's not just that. I mean, there's also research on whether freezing fruits and veg decreases their nutrient content, and there hasn't been any significant evidence that it does. So, I mean, you're getting the same nutritive content. You're just paying a buckload less and getting it in bulk, and it lasts you longer. Like I can buy like frozen veg and fruit, and instead of it having spoiling in a few days to a week, it can last in my freezer for like half a month to a month or something like that, without getting terrible freezer burn, as long as I don't pull it out of the freezer a lot. If I keep it in the freezer, it stays fine.
Yeah, and ideally, we'd all be able to just go outside and grab all of our food, but it's not the world we live in. So
definitely not in a major city either. Yeah.
Right. So let's see. I wanted to ask you about. There's been in the press lately a fair amount of vegans have been kind of breaking records and winning various athletic competitions. In your view, do you think there's actually an advantage to a vegan diet?
Well, we see evidence that it can decrease risk of cancer. We see evidence that it can decrease cholesterol, bad cholesterol levels. And actually, in fact, I have experienced that. When I was vegetarian, my cholesterol was so bad. I don't really talk about this a lot, but my cholesterol was so bad in some blood work I got in 13 that my doctor said had I had been in my 40s, he would have put me on statins. He said, because you're a risk for a heart attack, basically a risk for having a heart attack at any time. But based on my age, he didn't think it was as bad of a risk if I was in my 40s. So he said, cut back on the animal product consumption that has all this cholesterol, because I was eating, I guess, a lot of dairy and cheese and eggs, especially eggs, and at that time. So I had gone vegan for other reasons. I mean, that was, I guess, part of it. The health was definitely part of it, but I also had seen some chick grinding videos that were pretty shocking to me, and I couldn't support an egg industry. That's just fucking disgusting and sick. So I went vegan for that reason. I happened to get blood work because he wanted to check my blood again 3 months later to see how I was improving, taking some of his advice. So we did my blood work 3 months after I had gone vegan, and my cholesterol levels were absolutely astonishingly perfect. And he was like, "What the fuck did you do?" He didn't say fuck, but I mean, that was a look on his face. He was like, "What did you do?" And I said, "Oh, I went vegan." He's like, "Well, keep doing it, because I've never seen someone drop their cholesterol that quickly." And I went from like basically risk of death to perfect health range in a matter of 3 months. I mean, it might have been shorter than that, but I didn't get my blood drawn until 3 months later. So sometime in that time span, I went into perfect health. And yeah, I mean, it shocked my doctor. And, I feel like it just goes to show, I mean, at least anecdotally speaking, but we see this across the board, vegans and their longevity, vegans and their aging, vegans and their, of course, vegans who are doing it right. You could fuck up any dietary method, but, and cancer risk and cholesterol problems and there's a whole diabetes and a whole slew of issues that are for all intents and purposes cured, if not combated, if not prevented, because of a vegan diet. So back to what you were asking about athletes. Sorry for the tangent here, but I don't know if it's necessarily that vegans inherently have some magical power. It's not magic. It's something like this. It's not magic. I don't believe in magic, but I think it's because you're treating your body better, so it's going to function more optimally. I mean, if you have better cardiovascular health because you don't have so much plaque buildup, you're going to function better athletically speaking as well. I mean, I not to get too graphic, but I can tell you from a sexual standpoint, I perform so much better. My sexual health is so much better than when my cholesterol was so fucked up. Like, I'll let that to your viewers' imaginations, but that, I can tell you anecdotally speaking, that has occurred for me. That has noticeably occurred for me, like phenomenally occurred for me. Like just the way I was sexually when I was a vegetarian versus what I am now is like night and fucking day. Like, and I just wow. But that could just be anecdote. It could be other things too. I mean, I am an active guy, but I had to put that out there because it's what I have personally experienced. Digestion time is a lot less. Like with vegan, like with being with vegetarian, I didn't spend so much time with like irritable bowels trying to like digest this meat that just sat in my system forever. And that can affect your performance because if you're so worn out and lethargic from what you've eaten, you can't perform at optimal levels. I mean, I always hear bodybuilders saying, I have a meal, but I've got to wait at least 4 or 5 hours, or at least 3 hours at the least before I go train, or I feel sick, or I feel like, I mean, I feel that way too if I eat heavy right before I go. But yeah, I wonder if it's because they're still digesting all that meat and everything. It's just sitting in there, and it's affecting their performance. I mean, again, this is just conjecture. I don't know for a fact, but
well, Ayurveda is it's ancient system of lifestyle medicine from India, and they put digestion at the top of the pyramid when it comes to health. Mm-hmm. And it's directly tied in with your energy, and then you can experientially feel like when you release what's stored in your colon, you feel lighter and better. You have more energy. You feel just emotionally, like it could be, like you literally, kind of lose some of the toxic emotional stuff that you're holding on to.
Well, I mean, looking at purely at hormones too, which affect athletic performance. I mean, vegans have higher total testosterone than omnivores. However, due to hormone binding globulin, it actually comes out to be about the same. The free testosterone comes out to be about the same. It's an insignificant difference. It's not even worth noting. But there's a higher total testosterone. So I've always had a theory that I suggest this to people, that if you're to take herbs or drink an herbal tea, for instance, like stinging nettle root, which is known to unbind testosterone, so your SHBG is known to lower SHBG, it might give vegans that actual advantage. So if they have naturally higher total testosterone levels, according to research, which is what's been shown, and you unbind, which is what's causing it to balance out in the free testosterone, you might find that vegans would have higher free testosterone than omnivores. So
interesting.
Just an interesting thought. That's complete theory and conjecture. There's no research to show that, but I'm taking one set of research on a particular herb and I'm combining it with the research on vegans and their hormones compared to omnivores, and theorizing there might be something to that.
Yeah, I feel like it wouldn't be too hard to find out, at least individually.
Somebody had to fund the trial, get at least a decent number of people to experiment on, and and I mean, you don't even necessarily need to go against meat eaters here, but simply just see where the vegan free testosterone levels would be post, stinging nettle treatment, for instance, and then maybe later on do a comparison to meat eaters with stinging nettle or whatever, and see what happens. But it will be interesting to see if it does affect, first and foremost, if it just affects the actual free levels of a vegan by adding in some stinging nettle root.
Yeah. Have you heard anything about pine pollen as far as testosterone?
Not really. I don't even know if that's necessarily that's even vegan. If it's pollen, I mean, I don't know if bees. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have no idea. I tend to ignore a lot of non-vegan research when it comes to performance because it's not really my focus too much. I mean, I do look at it when I have to make comparisons, but a lot of my clients, my viewers, myself, I mean, my niche is really vegans, so I do try to focus more on how to enhance their performance, basically.
Okay, so I guess what are your thoughts about something like honey in regards to health or veganism?
Well, I'm not denying that maybe honey has some ability to relieve congestion or something, but when it comes down to it, it's still exploitation of bees. And there are, and we don't need necessarily. I mean, it's because of us that bee populations are dying. So people use the argument, hey, by keeping honeybees alive for their bee production, basically justifying exploitation of the bees, which are relative to bees, at least they're very intelligent creatures that very structured lifestyles, systems that they live in. There are alternatives. You can get apple-based honey. There's an apple-based honey product. It's for vegans. I forgot what they call it. I think it's called honey, Honee. And it tastes like I remember honey tasting, just that it's made from apples. There's also you can also use other things like agave or maple syrup. It doesn't taste like honey, but it can function as honey would in a recipe or as a substitute of some sort. Like I love maple syrup. It's tasty, and agave is decent too. It's it doesn't have that honey flavor, but it has that sweet nectar kind of scenario going on. So that's my thoughts on honey. It's like it's the same thing with oysters and everything else. It's like, while they may not have a central nervous system as mammals do, you don't need them. It's like you don't need them in your diets. There's no reason to, in other words, why do something you don't need when it may indeed cause harm? And in the case of oysters, they do have ganglia, so they can sense pain in some way, just not the way that we can, but they can in some way. So since we don't fully understand, for instance, in the case of oysters, how they feel pain, why risk it? You don't need it in your diet, so I don't see the point in doing it. It's like one of those kind of things. If you don't need it, what's the point? When there's alternatives.
Well, I have heard. My understanding is that oysters actually have a whole lot of zinc in them, and it's really difficult to get that quantity of zinc as a vegan.
I mean, you can overdose on zinc as well. Keep that in mind.
Sure.
It is, it's a mineral that you don't need a whole hell of a lot from. You can easily meet your daily recommended zinc intake requirements from a vegan diet as long as you're eating a good variety of whole foods. So, your leafy greens, for instance, you want to eat a lot of that. And then if you really feel that you need more, you can always take like a ZMA type supplement and pop back some zinc that way. But
Yeah.
I mean, you can get pretty easily from like nuts, seeds, and greens, for instance, your zinc requirements as a vegan, it's not that complicated. And I mean, with any of these, I mean, the only exceptions might be vitamin D and omega-3 DHA fatty acids and B12. B12, yeah, you need supplement that unless
Right.
you're eating fortified foods. And when it comes to vitamin D, if you're not getting enough sun or you can't absorb sun properly, to get D3, you can take an algae-based supplement. And actually lichen-based, sorry, it's lichen-based for D3. Lichen-based supplement, which aren't all that expensive if you're living in a place that's not that conducive to getting enough sunlight. And you can get your vitamin D3 that way, or you can just get D2 from like mushrooms and your body can convert it. It's not a massively efficient conversion, but your body will do what it needs to do. And then the other way is, and then for DHA, algae oil from the sea. Algae oil is actually far less toxic for you than fish oil.
Right, that's what I've been taking.
Yeah, so I mean, it's actually better for you than fish oil, and it's where do you think the fish get their fucking DHAs from?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're consuming the sea life, like the plant life down there. So, there's an alternative for everything really when it comes down to it, and even with vitamin K, fermented soy products like natto, the Japanese food, contain vitamin K too. Mm-hmm. And K1 can convert again to K2. They've done research on the conversion rates of K1. While it's not perfectly efficient, your body will do what it needs to do, and vegans do adapt. You might want to kickstart a little bit with some supplementation, but your body will adapt in due time. And you can get K from a vegan diet as well, and you can get K2 from fermented soy products too.
Yeah, and I'd have to wonder, if, is there drawback to supplementing certain things, like if your body can create it, like maybe your body gets used to taking exogenous substances and then it stops producing.
Yes, that can cause a problem. There has been, believe it or not, studies that show the body will not produce creatine from your diet if you're taking it in supplement form. It will either that or it will lower its production of creatine. And then if you suddenly stop taking creatine as a supplement, you might find your body's not producing it the same. Because really, creatine comes from the consumption of 3 different amino acids. The body then produces creatine from those 3 amino acids, which I believe are, off the top of my head, I believe they're arginine is definitely one of them. I want to say ornithine is one of them. And I think lysine might be one of them. And the body will produce creatine from those amino acids in your diet, which you can get from diet. So vegans can produce creatine. Of course, you're going to get it in larger quantities from eating meat, but you can get your creatine without having to supplement as a vegan. But vegans do benefit from supplementing with creatine. It's so dirt cheap. So reforming vegans might behoove them to supplement creatine. But yeah, I mean, I guess some things if your body is capable of producing particular things and you start taking it as a supplement, the body is an efficient machine. It will stop production in certain areas and focus on other areas if it's getting its needs met elsewhere. This is why testosterone works the way it does. If you are injecting steroids, the reason the shutdown occurs is because your body will stop its own production, its own endogenous production of testosterone, because it's getting it from an exogenous source, and it looks at it as inefficient. So it will be able to it will focus its energies elsewhere since it's getting an ample supply that it needs from an external source. And so in the case of things like that, where your body is a producer, I mean, it's like with creatine and with testosterone and things like that, and even growth hormone and things. Yeah, you could shut yourself down. Now, the severity of shutdown from chemical drugs like testosterone and GH, I would assume is wildly different than creatine. So, but yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's possible.
And just briefly wanted to just interject that my understanding is there's hardly anybody on the planet who's getting enough vitamin D from the sun, and so that's one thing that basically everyone should be taking.
And not just vitamin D, but B12. Did you realize that the B12 deficiency is so profound? And it's not just amongst vegans, it's amongst the general population here we're talking about. This is from, I believe this comes from the FDA. I saw a 2015 paper on it where there's actually a scare that vitamin B12 deficiency is so profound in general. And we could cite so many different reasons why this might be. Keep in mind, animals don't produce B12 any more than we do. So just because you're eating beef doesn't mean you're getting B12. Keep in mind that B12 is obtained through filthy means. Like our ancestors would drink from streams where there was shit. And B12 is created in the fecal matter. It's created in the intestines. So if animals crap in nature and it gets into the water supply, at one time when we were drinking from freshwater streams, we were obtaining B12 through means of that, or eating dirty vegetables picked from the ground. We weren't clean. But now in this post-industrial era, we clean our foods. We drink filtered water. We're not getting it the way that our ancestors used to get B12. So, even animals on farms, people were like, well, I did it for my meat. It's like, well, understand, those animals are fortified. And I explained the Sakino body in one of my response videos. Those animals are fortified with B12. They're fortified with various vitamins. It's the same thing as me picking up a soy milk that has fortification in it. We're just getting it fortified.
Yeah, and they're pumped full of antibiotics, so how are they?
There's that too, and also not to mention the animal hormones, like the animal estrogens that are found in meat and dairy, that are worse than the phytoestrogens that are weak and easily metabolized that are found in soy products. So when it comes down to it, in the end of the day, I recommend that everybody, I don't care who you are, supplements with B12.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. My mother has to take injected B12, and she's not a vegan. I mean, like everybody should supplement with B12, because the deficiency is fucking serious. And I think that when it comes to D3, since you can OD on D3, but now you have to take a wild amount of D3 to OD on it. Like you have to, I think, get something in the 5,000 to 10,000 IU per day range to begin ODing on D3. It's something, maybe it might have been 20,000. It's something absolutely absurd that I don't think anybody should be supplementing that much D3. But I think a little D3 to supplement what you can get from the sun if you're not getting enough absorption from the sun, because you don't want to end up with rickets and things like that. It's definitely, it could be beneficial to supplement D3. So D3 and B12, I think, should be a staple in everybody's arsenal, regardless if you're vegan or not, just for general health promotion.
Duly noted. All right, so. Something else I wanted to talk to you about is macros. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts about, what proportion of fats and proteins and carbs, is ideal, and, maybe it's different for different people.
Sure. So. I mean, it is different for different people. It is different based on what your goals are, really. When it comes down to it, for the average person, I think it's 0.4 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day. I think it's 0.8 grams per kilogram, but 0.4 grams per pound per day is the RDA. It's the recommended dietary allowance for protein intake for general health. Now, if you're an endurance athlete, I think it bumps up a little bit. You can get like about 0.75 grams per pound. And then if you're a bodybuilder or a strength athlete of some kind, it benefits you more so to have up around a gram per pound of body weight per day, actually. And vegans especially around a gram, because just to make up for any potential losses from like black beans or something, just to make up for any potential inhibition of the absorption level. I recommend an additional 10% above the recommended amount for bodybuilders. So I say for vegans, 1 gram per pound per day is perfect, and whether you're cutting or bulking. Now, if you're deep cutting, everybody should consider around 1.5 grams per pound. If you're really low, like extraordinarily low calories, like pre-contest, like right up before contest, about a gram and a half per pound of body weight per day is good. So that's protein right there, and it does vary, as you can see, per endeavor. And what you do is you calculate out your calories from those different, for whatever your requirements are, and then you take that out of your calorie allotment for the day. Now, for fat, yeah, sure.
Real quick. So what I've I've read in some vegan literature, I'm not sure where I saw this originally. Maybe it was the 80-10-10 diet book, but there's this idea that, you know, babies or mother's milk specifically is around 5% protein. And because the baby is doubling in size, you know, every few months or however long, that would be the time of your life where you would need the highest percent of your calories from protein. So there would be no point later in life that you would need more than 5%.
When it comes to babies, there's a whole lot of factors to take into consideration too. When it comes to like hormone levels, activity requirements, maintenance, there's a whole lot to take. It's almost ill-advised to compare baby growth to an adult human. You know, babies also have an absolutely substantial amount of growth hormone. It's almost, I would say, double or triple what a young adult in his early to mid 20s or her early to mid 20s would have. So there are wild biological differences, at least hormonally speaking, in babies and adults, and that can play a role too. So I feel it's disingenuous to actually make claims like that, you know, to draw this kind of comparisons. Just about as disingenuous as saying, like, you know, oh, a gorilla is so big and it thrives on plants and insects. Well, that may be very well true. We're not gorillas. You know, it doesn't mean we can't be vegan, but I don't like those kinds of comparisons because we aren't gorillas, we aren't rhinoceros and things like that. So when it comes down to it, I go by what the research says, the actual well-accepted, well-documented, well-studied, well-controlled research on human, like average humans, endurance athletes, strength athletes, etc. And I go by what is recommended by your goals, what because of what you do to your body, what your body is required to take. And
okay, so just average Joe, you know, what would be like the minimum percent?
I would I don't like going by the reason I don't go by percentages, the reason I go by grams per pound or kilogram is because percentages can vary. So let's say you are eating a massive surplus of calories. Let's say you're getting in 4,000 calories a day, which would make most people fat as fuck. But let's say you're getting in 4,000 calories a day. 10% of 4,000 calories is going to be significantly higher than 10% of 2,500 calories, or 10% of 2,000 calories, or 10% of 1,200 calories. So when it comes down to it, it's absurd, and it's just absurd, I guess is the word for it. There's another word I was looking for, but arbitrary to go by percentages when you don't have a finite calorie. So when people say 80-10-10, I'm like, well, 80% and 10% of what? Like, are we talking a surplus? And if so, how much? Are we talking a deficit? And if so, how much? And are we talking maintenance calories? And you know, this is where it's very, you can't just give percentages like that. So this is why when I say protein, I say grams per pound or kilogram. This is why when I say or when I say for fat, I say 20% of your maintenance needs, like your resting maintenance needs, like what you need to maintain your health calorie-wise. 20% of that is ample for is the lowest you should go for fat. Now you can go as high as 35% if you want to. The research actually shows a broad range that will not affect your health negatively. But that's based on your maintenance needs. So, all
right. So, say for me, you know, being roughly 165 pounds, we'll just say 160. So, like, how much protein and how much fat should I be consuming daily?
Sure. Let's put up a calculator here, for instance. So you say about 160 pounds. I would put your maintenance around 2,400 calories a day. You know, if you're a relatively active person, I'd say around 2,400 calories a day is a pretty good bet. So your fat from that would be about 20% of that, and that's 480 calories. Divide that by 9 because it's 9 calories per gram of fat. You should be getting about 53 grams of fat per day, or roughly about 53 grams of fat per day for health. You know, as a relatively active male that weighs 160.
Okay. So 33, you said?
53.
53, okay.
So yeah, you get your 2,500 multiplied by 20%. Sorry, actually, it wasn't even 2,500. It was, let's say you were 160 multiplied by 15. It's 2,400. So 2,400 calories for your maintenance, for your active maintenance, multiplied by 20% brings to 480 calories for fat per day. Divide by 9, because 9 calories per gram. It's 53 grams of fat per day, roughly speaking. 53.3 to be exact, but you can round it down to 53.
Right.
It's not all that much. It's really not all that much, and that will keep your hormones healthy. That'll keep your skin and hair healthy. That'll help you absorb your vitamins and minerals, like your D vitamins and your E vitamins and things like that that are reliant on fat for proper absorption. And it's just going to be for your general health. I mean, you don't want to crash, and that's why I don't like that whole 80-10 because it's so arbitrary, and it can be too low depending on where your calories go. So I go by grams per pound or grams per kilogram, and in the only case I use percentages with fat, So and that's where I make it from maintenance calories. So it's not arbitrary; it's fixed. It's your maintenance.
Okay, and so for my fat requirement, is that again based on my weight, or is that?
It's based purely on your weight, so it's individualized. Okay. Yep, it'll be different. So let's say a girl that weighs 110, she maintains around 1,650 calories a day. Her 20% of that is 330 divided by 9. That girl who weighs 110, this theoretical girl, would eat about 37 grams of fat per day. So compared to you, she's eating less, but that's for her body weight.
Okay, so just 20% of my calories are from fat.
20% of your maintenance calories, yes, are from fat.
Okay. And then could I do more, much more than that, or
Yeah. You can go up as the research from the Heart Association, from the Cancer Organization, from a whole slew of different medical organizations. Everyone seems to agree on 20 to 35% of your calories per day from fat is a good, healthy range. So some people just feel better. I do fine around 20% of my calories from fat, but some folks, when I'm not keto, that is, but some folks, they might feel better at 25% or 30%. Do what feels better for you. If you just function better at a higher fat intake, that's perfectly fine. You just, let's say in your case, you felt better at 30% fat. Well, 160 multiplied by 15 times 30% of that, 720 divided by 9, you get 80 grams of fat per day if you're doing 30%. So yeah. It does vary, but you have to find out what works for you. It's you have to work with your body.
Can you put that into avocados?
Of course.
How many avocados would I have to eat?
Well, I don't know off the top of my head what the average avocado has fat-wise. I can tell you that 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, just regular run-of-the-mill peanut butter, is 18 grams of fat. So, if you were to get it purely from peanut butter, which I don't recommend because you want to get flax seeds and things like that as well. But let's say theoretically you took 53 grams and you got it purely from peanut butter. That's just 2.9. So it's essentially 3 servings of peanut butter a day at 2. It's about 6 tablespoons of peanut butter a day, and you get your fat requirements.
Okay, that seems reasonable.
But I don't like I said, get flax seeds in there as well. Don't just go all peanut butter on this shit. Don't go all avocado because avocados aren't going to get your omega-3s. So you want to throw in some flax, at least a tablespoon of flax a day to 2 tablespoons of flax a day.
Okay. Kind of drawing a blank here. So that brings up the idea, you did mention ketosis. So is that something you just do for competitive bodybuilding, or is that something that average person would get some benefit from?
It's really it's relative, to be honest. I mean, keto diets were originally designed to help improve the life quality and capacity for people with epilepsy. So it actually can help combat epilepsy. People with keto diets that can combat epilepsy. Now, there is no evidence to show that keto diets are any more successful than standard low-calorie diets with higher carb intake at burning fat. But there's no real evidence to show that. There is some evidence to show that keto diets can improve satiety in some people due to the higher fat and protein intake. Some people just feel more that's how I feel more satiated on a keto diet. So my calories can be significantly lower, but I'll feel more satiated because of the higher fat and protein. So it really varies from person to person. I haven't seen any evidence for it, but apparently I hear rumor or theory that keto diets can starve cancer cells. I don't know. I don't really know if that's a fact or not. It's probably total shit. I haven't seen any research to prove it. But whatever the case is, there is theory about that out there that it can help starve cancer cells. But don't quote me on that. So, but there's different people that find that they just like keto, and people who absolutely hate keto. So it really comes down to what you prefer. Can the average person do it? Sure. If they enjoy eating that, I still would advise, for athletes especially, that you have at least one day a week where you just reverse it. So it's like the reverse keto, where you go from being really high fat, moderate protein, and low carb to being really high carb with moderate protein and low fat. So protein is the same, and the protein and the fat and the carbs switch around. They kind of flop. Because that will help with your hormones. It helps with psychology as well. It's kind of hard to diet like that and be low carb. So, having that once a week helps spike various hormones in the body. It keeps testosterone healthy, leptin levels, all sorts of shit will be influenced by having what I call a weekly refeed. But you got to at least go 7 to 10 days between. So you switch back. It's called a cyclic ketogenic diet. So what you do is you switch back for 7 to 10 days where you're eating low fat again, and then suddenly on the 7th or 10th day you boom have a refeed. Some people might go 2 weeks, but that might be pushing it because you might find your testosterone levels will tank out. That's why I don't like strict keto unless you have a medical reason to be strict keto, like epilepsy.
Yeah, I've heard it can cause some serious problems if you do it too long.
Yeah, it can cause a crash in your hormones and your mood, and that will cause a crash in your performance and your sex drive and a whole number of things. So it is good to have an occasional refeed in there. I know that I feel this. Some folks feel that when they do a refeed on keto, that suddenly their body temperature just goes through the fucking roof on that refeed day. This is true. It's happened to me as well. You feel that thermogenic effect from the carbohydrates when you consume them after having not consumed them for so long. I don't know what effect that's going to have in your body fat being lower, but it definitely is. Your body's utilizing those carbohydrates. It's just churning the shit out of them. It's putting them into your muscle glycogen stores, your liver glycogen stores, so it definitely is a day where people can enjoy a little bit something extra, like some extra fruit, or hey, that candy that you didn't eat, during the week, or maybe you're timing it for a nice meal out with your family or friends, or a birthday party or something, and you're gonna have a few slices of cake, and it's a way to time that intake so that you don't really do any damage to yourself. You will inevitably gain shitloads of water weight after a refeed, but within about 3 days you piss all that out and you're back to your baseline again, to where you were before you started the refeed, if not lower. In a lot of cases, you're actually still dropping about a pound to 2 pounds of fat if you're in a caloric deficit. You still got to be in a caloric deficit. Your keto days still need to be in deficits if you're trying to lose weight.
Okay. And is that like a major reason that people would, attempt to do a keto?
Yeah, they do it because a lot of people want to lose weight, and it's easier in the sense that, not because it's faster, but in the sense that satiated. At least some people. Research actually has shown that there's a perceived higher level of satiety from a keto diet because of the higher fat and protein.
Okay, so it's sort of, you can do a little diet without feeling hungry.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I actually feel kind of zen-like on a keto diet. It's actually it's hard to explain. I feel calm. I feel more mental clarity, and I feel like I don't feel like I'm suffering. I don't. My calories might be in the 1800 range, but which is fucking low for me. Because normally I would cut around 2200, 2250 if I wanted to have a decent cut. But sometimes I'll plug that shit down really low to speed things up, and I just don't feel it. With the extra fat and protein intake, I just don't feel it.
Yeah, I've heard that before from people. I haven't tried to. I haven't done the keto thing myself, but I've heard that people do tend to feel clarity.
To anyone listening to this, I will admit it's tough the first between 3 and 10 days. It depends on how fast you adapt. It's the keto adaptation phase. It depends on how fast you adapt. This is why I said it should take at least 2 weeks to even sometimes 3 weeks to before you have your first refeed. If you're doing cyclic keto, because you got to give your body a chance to adapt to the keto dieting, and that's where some people experience halitosis. They might experience what they call the keto flu, which usually will go away within 3 days when you get it, which is like lethargy. You feel tired. You feel like you can't have the energy. But if you stick with it, in 3 days, usually that goes away. I've never heard anyone maintaining keto flu for the duration. So, I never really had a bad keto flu. I did have the halitosis at first, so I used mint chewing gum to fight that. But once you do keto enough and you come back to it and come back to it and come back to it, you don't experience some of the side effects as much anymore. Like they're either diluted or they don't happen again at all, in my experience. But those are some risks. It is a little tough because your body is so used to carbohydrates that you're basically saying, okay, body, halt. Now get used to less carbs and higher amounts of fat than you were previously used to, and proceed from there. So your body might find that a little difficult to grasp at first, but that's part of the adaptation. You have to adapt. Keto adapt is what they call it.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
So I wanted to get into this a bit earlier on, but I'm sure you've been asked this question as anyone who has been vegan for more than a couple of days has.
Yeah.
Where do you get your protein?
Well, I tell a lot of the sarcastic people who ask me that, I know they're being dicks, I'll say from people who ask me that question. But typically speaking, where I get my protein from is like, it varies. I mean, I like pinto beans, I like black beans, I eat a shitload of soy. There's like protein in broccoli. I mean, you'd be surprised like how much protein is actually in a cup of broccoli. There's protein in spinach. I think there's more so in broccoli though. I eat a lot of spinach and broccoli. I love spinach and broccoli. I hate kale, but I love spinach and broccoli. There's even protein in fruit. Like there's like 1.5 grams of protein per medium-sized banana. Believe it, people won't. It's like it blows their mind in all the places you can get protein from. You start to begin to realize as a vegan, all these places you can get protein from. So it really varies. You can get protein from rice. You can get protein, from so many fucking places. So it's like, where do I not get protein from? Every food that I consume, with the exception of things like oils, for instance, it contains some manner of protein. Even avocados, which people think is a fat source, have a couple grams of protein in them. It's only a couple grams, but think about this. You eat enough, it's adding up, And then you have your big heavy hitters like your seitan or your soy products, like tofu or tempeh, or your beans or your lentils, and even your broccolis and your spinaches. And these are your more heavy hitters for protein. You can see how you get protein. It's fucking impossible to be deficient in protein. Like even as a vegan, it's if you're eating enough food, it's impossible to be deficient.
Yeah, I've heard like the only way would be if you were to only eat something like cassava. And there's there's some tribe in the Amazon that has a protein deficiency, but that's because they only have cassava. So
I mean,
unless you're only eating like tapioca pudding,
I guess if you're in like 30 bananas a day, which is absurd, like 1.5 grams times 30, that's 45 grams. I mean, for a chick to your average size dude, I mean that is already right there just from fucking bananas. Now you might be screwing yourself in the fat department, but but I'm not advising anyone to eat 30 bananas a day. I don't actually advise anyone follow the advice of Freely or Durian Rider.
Yeah, they're really entertaining, and I appreciate
they're entertaining. They bring awareness to veganism for better or for worse, especially Harley. But their nutrition advice is absolutely important. So I don't advise that for anybody.
Yeah, they're not too data heavy.
No, they're not. They're not. And when they do cite research, they cite really poorly controlled old research that fits their narrative, as opposed to looking at the broader research that's available. So I don't mean this as an attack on them as people, but their nutrition advice is abhorrent. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, I feel like that happens a lot. Even with doctors, and I'm Dr. McDougall's coming to mind because he's such a big proponent of the low fat. You can't ever have fat.
I have cracked on McDougall in good fun before. I don't have any personal problems with the guy. I have heard some stories. I don't know if they're true. I heard a story that somebody disagreed with McDougall and saw him at a conference and aired their disagreement with him, and he basically told him to shut up. He was very impolite about how he got them to back down. He was almost like, just shut up and get out of my face kind of thing. I don't know the validity of the story. This is what I've heard. Now, I can tell you what I can tell you the validity of is that McDougall has emphasized that, at least at one time, emphasized with a starch solution that high starch diet is the optimal diet for human beings. Now, that's an overgeneralization and it's patently false. There was there's a paper that came out in like 13, a big global paper. They looked at twins. They looked at, they looked at all populations from all over the world, Asia, Europe, and they looked at the digestibility of starches amongst people. And they found that it was at least 30% of the global population, if not even as high as close to 50%. It's a pretty big paper that showed that there are just people who cannot digest. It's more about predigestion. Starches, they lack a gene called AMY1, which regulates amylase, and they just cannot digest starches, and it causes bloating, it causes irritability in their digestive tract, it can even cause weight gain, according to this research. And they were predicting maybe it's even a reason for obesity amongst some people, but whatever reason is they don't produce enough AMY1 to properly digest starches. So no, McDougall, high starch diet is not the optimal diet for human beings. For these folks who have a problem with starches and they want to eat carbohydrates, I recommend more fruit intake for your carbs as opposed to starches, because then you can get you can get your carbs, but you're not going to overload on the starchy, like your grains and shit. You can maybe eat berries or something instead, or ripe bananas, which are higher in glucose content.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So let's see. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to touch on this topic. It's a little controversial, but I think it's worth mentioning. Even though this might ruffle some feathers, I think this topic needs to be addressed.
Okay.
And you have talked about it in one of your videos, and that's the idea of fat shaming. So can you give us? I know, yeah, we're definitely treading into dangerous territory with this, but I want to
look. I tread into dangerous territory all the time. I'm not one to. I'm one to speak my mind with regards to politics and social shit as well. I mean, and it's got me a lot of backlash.
Yeah, I feel like we got to tell the truth, because
you can't run and hide because it doesn't fit a narrative. Now, this fat shaming thing. Okay, I'm just going to come right out and say obesity is disgusting, not just to look at, which is purely aesthetic, but also from a health standpoint, and what it has therefore impacts on the economy. Obesity-related illness is draining the U.S. and the UK. Just to give you two examples. I mean, absolutely draining. We're talking about billions of dollars a year going into combating the drawbacks of people being so fucking fat. And there's just so many people that are morbidly obese or just even excessively overweight. We're talking about greater than 50% of the population. Think about it. Let that sink in for a minute here. Like there are some states in America where we're going towards 80% of the population is overweight or obese. I mean, that's an epidemic. I mean, this is bad. And glorifying fat, as they call it, the beauty of being fat, the self-acceptance. And I don't mean, bettering yourself. It's one thing if you're overweight and you'll want to do something about it. Okay, you want to work out, you want to eat healthy. You just happen to made some bad choices, and here you are. But you want to turn things around. More power to you. That's an excellent mindset. Now, where I have a problem with it, I've emphasized this, is where people who are grotesquely overweight, but they don't want to change. They want it to be beautiful. They want it to be accepted. They want people to accept them for their shitty lifestyle choice that's going to cause problems for the nation. Because there's a lot of people with this condition. They don't want to do anything about it. They don't want to change. They want to remain complacent in this place they're at, or even worse, get bigger. And that's reprehensible. And the people who push this, that's fat shaming to talk crap. No, people need to hear how bad it is to be overweight. People need to hear this. And you know what? Sometimes with some people, it just takes hearing, hey, buddy or girl, that ain't attractive either.
Yeah, it's kind of like if somebody has if somebody's an alcoholic, they don't want to be told that, hey, exactly. This is causing your problems.
It's you're right. If somebody's got an alcohol problem or a smoking problem, you tell them. You don't say, hey, you know what? It's so fucking sexy that you drink that much alcohol a day. good on you. You know, it's not hurting you. Keep on doing it. People should accept you for who you are, and that's a fucking drunk. This is just not appropriate behavior in any ill. You know, whether you're an alcoholic or you're, you know, a fucking sexaholic, or you know, there's so many bad behaviors that can lead to serious problems if people continue them. And obesity is definitely one of them. And so I don't think this kind of shit should be glamorized or accepted. No, 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 no. It needs to be shamed. I don't mean, but insofar as I say draw the line when somebody is trying to make a difference in their body and they just need help. Don't beat it into them then. Help them. Give them advice. I'm always willing to give some advice: how to lose weight, how to exercise. You know, feel empowered. Go to the gym. If you're a little scared of going to the gym at first, work out at home. Get yourself to where you feel a little more comfortable, then go to the gym, or bring a buddy with you to the gym, so you feel like all eyes are on you. But I can assure, if there's anyone listening to this who's overweight, I can assure you, as somebody who is an avid gym goer, we're not watching you. And the ones that are taking notice to you are thinking, good for you. Good for you. You're in the right place. And the ones that are going to criticize, look, they're pricks. I mean, there's pricks everywhere. And they're going to be pricks to me. They're going to be pricks to me because I'm not big enough compared to them, or maybe I'm too big and I think I'm on steroids. There's a prick everywhere you go. So you can't let the few pricks make you think that everyone's a prick. And I can tell you, a lot of bodybuilders are very, very willing to help. You know, we've been small before. I've been fat before. You know, we've been places before where we know what it's like. We weren't always like this. We had to start from somewhere. And so we're always willing to pass on the torch, you know, and give you advice. And, you know, and I've actually had people there. There's, for instance, a woman in my gym who just, she couldn't afford her personal trainer anymore. And so she's seen guys like me and other guys at my gym, and she's come up to us and asked us for advice. Hey, am I doing this properly? Hey, what do you recommend for this, et cetera, et cetera. And she told me one time, she goes, you know, guys like you are a real asset in these gyms because you have so much knowledge. And she goes, and you guys aren't assholes. Everyone thinks you're assholes, but you're not assholes. You know, you're very nice to people. And it's like, yeah, I mean, there's a misconception that because we're big that we're jerks. It's like most of us have been on the other end of the spectrum. We know what it's like to be there. So, you know, we also know what hard work can do for you. So we can't do the work for you, but we can put you in the right direction. So, you know, I think that a lot of people are afraid that they're going to be judged going to a gym. It's like, hell no, that's the place you need to be. If you're trying to lose weight or change your body for the better, the gym is the place you need to be. So don't feel bad about it.
Of course, the diet has to change most of the time.
The diet's a cornerstone. If you go to the gym, you can be putting in all the work in the world in the gym, but if your diet isn't correct, you're spinning your wheels. It's the same way, too, that even if your diet is correct, if you're not working out correctly in the gym, you're spinning your wheels. It's also the same way. It's also the same way, literally, that if your diet is in check, maybe your lifting is in check, but your sleep is fucked up. I call it the holy trinity of bodybuilding, really, of fitness in general, and that is diet, exercise, and sleep. All three are vitally important.
Yeah, and those, believe it or not, those actually line up really well with the 3 pillars of health of Ayurveda.
Oh, okay, interesting. I didn't know that. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe it's sleep. Sleep is like the number 1, and then diet, and then what they call brahmacharya, or like a kind of a basically healthier, holy lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, like, it's just, you know, and it's all for different. I mean, obviously, we know that what you do in the gym, it breaks the muscle down. It sets the wheels in motion. What you do in the kitchen is what helps you repair. It's what it optimizes your hormone levels, etc. What you do in the bedroom, you know, sleeping. Well, I mean, I guess other things too. But what you do in the bedroom is going to ultimately affect your recovery. It's going to affect your ability to repair, because you do your repair while you're sleeping and at rest. And it's going to affect your hormones as well. Because various research to show that shitty sleep consistently causes significant drops in hormone, in testosterone. And it also, you know, your growth hormone secretion occurs at night. So as an adult, especially, so it's best to get your sleep so you can, I mean, why do you think, you know, I hate to use a comparison to babies because they are different in some ways than adults, but they do sleep a lot. There's a lot of
Mhm.
growth hormone going on there. They're growing, So sleep, and the way I look at it is that if you can't get a straight 8 hours to 10 hours at night, try to sneak in a couple hours of napping during the day somewhere. And even if you can get 8 to 10 hours of night, if you have the time, sneak in an extra hour of napping somewhere in the day, just because it's good for your body.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just one thing more I wanted to say on this fat acceptance or shaming topic is, there's this idea that, anybody who has any, I guess we'll say criticism or it could be constructive criticism. Maybe, somebody wants to point out hey, like this isn't healthy. Maybe something to change. They get labeled as being like uncaring or uncompassionate, but in reality, I think
it's like quite the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah, if somebody's saying no, hey, this is, and like you said, if somebody's saying this is totally fine, just keep going as you are, that's totally not compassionate.
Yeah.
You're not helping a person at all.
They get worse too. Like if you criticize a woman, if it happens to be a woman that you're making suggestions to or advice to, you'll get these SJW types that will come out and say things like, "Oh, you're misogynistic. You hate women. You're sexist." It's like, love her for what she looks like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, it's absurd. People like to drop these labels. They like to, it's illogical. It's actually just, in my opinion, it's degenerate. And anyway, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. And it's only perpetuating unhealthy shit. Like a lot of this these SJW activities of just accept, live, let live. It's perpetuating really unhealthy shit. It's making society more degenerate and spiraling us, the West, down the shitter.
It's like backwards. We're evolving backwards.
They call themselves progressive, but they're actually regressive as fuck.
Totally.
So yeah, it's absurd. So fat shaming, I think, needs to be done. I don't mean hurt somebody's feelings. I mean just be real with people.
Yeah. Maybe that's not the right term for it. I think maybe it's more just realism and directness. Just say, hey, like, hey, let's get it together.
Exactly. You continue on the path you're on now, you're going to put yourself in, to an early grave, for one. People who love you and care about you are going to lose you young. And in the meantime, if you, depending on what your financial situation is, for most people, that is, because most people aren't made of money, they're going to be eating from tax dollars to get the medical treatments they need. And it's going to put a burden on the economy. And it already is. We're talking about billions of dollars a year in the US and UK alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you're listening to this and you're overweight and you've been struggling, I love you, and I really do care about you, and I hope that you will, instead of taking on, this idea that you can't, you're a victim of circumstance and you have no control over your life. See if you can switch into a frame where you actually do have the ability to influence your situation, because you really do.
It's all about mindset. It really is. It's really about the mindset. You can change these things about yourself. You can lose the weight. If you have a thyroid condition, see a doctor. Get on some thyroid drugs or something if you need to help your thyroid work better. But when it comes down to it, at the end, it's about where you put yourself mentally. I have seen 70-year-olds go from being obese in photographs, like you see this before after photos, going from being obese to being like fit and even entering bodybuilding competitions. That's 70. It's crazy. And I've seen this kind of thing. I've seen, there's actually a lot of examples of seniors that do this kind of thing. Start like when they're in their 50s or 40s, begin lifting when most people would think that's past your prime, and end up building fantastic physiques well into their 70s and continue it going. It's like you've got to just adjust your mindset from a defeatist victim kind of mindset, which is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you got to adjust it to a winner's mindset where, I'm going to put in the work and I'm going to succeed. Don't let
Absolutely.
don't let it get you down. Like, you you look at your body. If you don't like something you see, change it. You know, maybe there's some things you can't change. Like, for instance, aside from surgeries or something, like I can't change where my biceps insert, so I'm not going to have like a certain kind of bicep shape that somebody else might have, or triceps or whatever. But I can make the best of what I've got, and I can make it the best it possibly can be. And it's all about mindset. I mean, I've been lifting consistently since 2009, and it's just about getting in there, getting it done, not missing a workout, not making excuses. When the mind is like, oh my God, I'd rather just take the night off and watch a movie. It's like, no, you're going to lift weights. When I've had a girlfriend say something to me like, hey, do you really need to go to the gym tonight? Can you stay in bed with me? And it's like, no, babe, I got to go lift weights. It's not as though I'm turning this, for instance, a girl down. I'm just simply saying, I'm going to go to the gym for an hour or so, and I'm going to lift my weights and get my thing done, because this is something I do for myself. And ultimately, you're going to appreciate the results. Let's be real here. And I'm going to be healthier for you in the long run. And so, and somebody who loves you and cares about you will be more than happy to support that. It doesn't mean you have to be obsessive about it. You can literally just get to the gym 3 to 4 times a week in the beginning and make ample progress. You don't need to get in the gym 7 fucking days a week, or even 6 days a week, or even 5 days a week. Literally, for a natural without drugs, you can get in 3 to 4 days a week, like a 3-day full body program. You can do like full body Monday, full body Wednesday, full body Friday, or you can do 3 days where you're like upper body Monday, lower body on Wednesday, and then on Friday you do full body. You can even do push-pull, where it's push day on Monday, and that includes your leg push muscles. Pull day on Wednesday, including your leg pull muscles. And then on Friday, you have a full body day. Or you can just do 4 days a week, upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body, that kind of thing. There's so many variations you can do. There's really no reason to make excuses, and you don't need to be in the gym more than about an hour to an hour and a half free time. Get in, get it done, feel great about yourself, get home and live your life. And you will live your life better when you're healthier.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of body weight stuff. I don't have a gym membership. I just do handstands and whatever calisthenics. I think if you just move your body. And,
you can even buy yourself dumbbells.
Necessarily. Yeah, and it does, there might be some resistance at first to, I don't like the way this feels, but after a while you really start to enjoy moving your body.
Well, I mean, I have a little home gym set up. I live in Manhattan, so our apartments here are very tiny for the price you pay. So I have to literally have a small home gym set up. So what I do is I have a little home gym set up that anyone can purchase for a few $100. That literally what I have is I have a pull-up bar in my door frame that you install in the door frame, and it just literally latches onto the door frame. You don't have to drill anything or anything like that. And that gets you do pull-ups, chin-ups, neutral grip, whatever you want to do. Then I have an adjustable bench that does flat, it does incline, and I can do all sorts of like bench type work with that. And then I have a couple of dumbbells that go up to 100 pounds per hand. You just take the plates on and off, and you screw the little safety net on. And I got one of those dumbbell sets, and then I got a kettlebell. It's like 36 pounds. And on top of that, I have a few exercise resistance bands and an ab wheel. And in a pinch, like for instance, when Hurricane Sandy hit, or when there's a big snowstorm and inevitably the city shuts down, I'm not losing a workout. I can still get a basic workout at home that will suffice until I can get myself back in the gym again. It's not as great as having a squat rack and everything else, but hey, for a home gym setup, I can get a decent workout in. I can hit everything I need to hit in some way until I can get back to the gym. So even if you're somebody who doesn't want to work out in the gym, you can get a really good, decent home workout in.
Yeah, and it's just, I think it's just a great thing to know, if some calisthenic workouts, you don't, sometimes you travel, or you might have, there might be some reason you can't go to the gym. So, it's just good to know how to make yourself strong without having it.
That's true. I mean, when I travel, I've brought a bag of resistance bands with me, like varying tension resistance bands. Like I do that with body weight. I've done that. And now, obviously, at some places I go, there's a gym as well. Like when I spend time in London, I do sign up for like a month membership at a gym, and I'll just use that gym for a month. But otherwise, I'll bring some bands. I'll do push-ups. I'll do dips off the bed or off a table or off a chair. I'll do like rows with bands. I'll do like curls with bands. You can get creative with bands as well. You can create like full workouts with just bands and body weight if you really are in a pinch. I actually had to do that with Santorini, Greece, because they didn't have a gym locally to me in Greece, and so I basically just swam a lot and did some body weight work with some bands. That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, I could tell you're probably a lot stronger than I am, but I have noticed that once I did start strength training, it has psychological benefits. I just feel more capable in general. Is that something you've experienced as well?
Yes, and this is also a note that I want to all your viewers out there who have not maybe they haven't started working out yet, or maybe they're unhappy with their bodies, or maybe they don't think they have a good enough love life, or maybe they are overweight and they feel like they can't get a proper mate. Look, the opposite sex is definitely a driving factor behind working out for a lot of people. Even for me, even though I really did it for health and for martial arts, I really wanted to. I also, looking good is. Let's be honest. We live in a society of very visually driven people. I mean, and there is research to show that the prettier you are, the more that you're considered trustworthy. So I can tell you that when you lift weights, and you start to see your body change, you'll notice a change in your outlook as well. Like, you'll begin to believe that anything's possible. You'll have more confidence in yourself. You'll be very proud of yourself. Other people might actually mistake you as getting an ego, when in reality it's just you being extraordinarily confident. But this is what happens when you lift weights. It does manifest itself in your outlook. I went from being chubby as a teenager and depressed a lot, being the guy that girls thought was just cute at best. Oh, you're the cute guy, you're the guy who might be fun to talk to and hang out with, but girls weren't routinely excessively interested in dating me. Let's put it this way. I mean, I not that I didn't get luck with some girls, but I was the cute guy. I was like the pretty boy. I was like the, pudgy and blonde hair, blue eyes. I was kind of the pretty boy. And, so but when I started lifting weights, I could tell you, like, all those people that say that girls don't give a shit about how you look, I can fucking tell you, for at least from my own anecdote, that it changes drastically. Like, women now, and I'm not exaggerating, women now will be out with their boyfriend, their current boyfriend, and will actually double take and stare at me and will keep looking at me to the point where their boyfriend notices their head turning back. Yeah. And the boyfriend will puff his chest up and drag his girl away. I've seen this happen numerous times. One guy got insulting. I was in the subway, and I was just minding my own business with music, heading to the gym. Yeah. And this girl was like giving me this look, and she was like licking her fucking lips. I'm dead serious. And her boyfriend saw this, leaned in and said, like, he's probably on fucking drugs. His dick probably doesn't work. I actually could hear, he was whispering it, but I could hear it. I have pretty good hearing. And I was just sitting there, like, rolling my eyes. It's like, I can assure you that I have no problems with functionality. You're just, the power is in his hands to look, And then I had a guy in my building, actually, whose girl constantly flirted with me. And right in front of him sometimes. She would flirt with me. And he was just really shitty about like, he gave me like he was shitty to me. Like, I had some control over what his girlfriend did. Look, whether that's appropriate what she was doing or not, the point is that when it comes down to it, we all have the ability to change our bodies. It's in your power to do that. If your girlfriend is noticing guys with muscle and you don't like that, then maybe if you had more muscle, maybe you'd be more appealing to her. Now, I'm not trying to say that, like, that's what you need to or should have to do, but you can't unwire evolution. Women are attracted to stronger and healthy looking mates, and muscle is definitely a sign of health, a sign of virility. And I'm not trying to I don't want this to sound like an ego trip here. I'm a very humble person when it comes down to it. I'm just trying to give you all advice out there that, yes, having a better body will indeed improve your own outlook on yourself and your life, which will also improve your chances of getting a mate, because women are attracted to confident men. But, and vice versa, ladies, the same thing. I find a woman who's confident to be attractive. I'm not, I do find that intelligence and confidence to be attractive, and I don't find morbidly obese chicks to be attractive. I mean, look, I'm a little bit more forgiving. I do like a curvy girl, so yeah, I don't mind a girl with a little softness on her. In fact, I prefer that a little bit. I've dated bikini models before, so at least one, and I can tell you I prefer softness on a girl. but nonetheless, I'm not saying it doesn't look good. You know, the point is, the better you look, the more confident you are, the more chances you're going to get. Look at it like a resume. Your body is like your resume in some ways. Like it's what's going to get you noticed, and then your personality better be able to pick up the fucking page, write the check after that. Because if you don't have a good personality, you can look fantastic, but if you have a shitty personality, your body will only get you so far. You know, it might score you some really slutty chicks who don't give a shit about your personality and just want to sleep with you. But if you're looking for like me, if you're looking for somebody, if you're looking for a relationship like I do, you got to have the personality to back it up. But having the body is the resume, really. It's like people see you like, oh, okay, what does a good body say? Some might say it says narcissism, and that can be the case in some people. But it also can say you're dedicated. You know, you stick to something. You know, you're healthy. You know, these are positives. You know, for all the negatives that somebody might want to associate with it, there's plenty of positives as well. You know, and I think that also comes from the minds of the person doing the looking. You know, somebody who's instantly going to drop the narcissist bomb, and anyone who just looks good. Well, where are they coming from psychologically themselves? Like, they may not be very healthy themselves. So you know, but it's good for your health. It's good for your longevity. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your outlook. It's good for your sex appeal. It's good for your sex drive. It's good for your body in general to lift weights and eat healthily. So my advice to you folks out there who want to change something about yourself, you're not happy about something about yourself, change it. Just change it. More than likely, your gut feeling about what you want to change is the truth. You should listen to your gut. If your gut's saying, I'm not so happy about not, you know, having larger pecs or delts or something, or, you know, I wish I was a little stronger looking, or I wish I could open doors a little bit more ease, or, you know, I wish that, you know, I just was a little more shapely. You know, these are things, just go and take care of it. Just go and do it. You just get it done. You'll be happy with your results. You know, that's my advice.
Yeah, well, I guess we're going to round things off. Okay. But I really appreciate all your knowledge, and thanks for spending the time with us.
Of course.
So if people want to find Cory, he has a YouTube channel, which is Cory McCarthy, right?
Yeah, it's just Cory McCarthy. You can find it on YouTube that way. Yeah, just search YouTube for Cory McCarthy. Or you can even type in Cory McCarthy vegan vegan bodybuilder. That'll bring up a shit ton of my work. I think the actual YouTube link is something like www.youtube.com/Cory RMCC. I think that's what the actual link to the channel is. It could be wrong. I don't really go to my own link. I just go to YouTube and I can find. Well, I mean, I just log in. It's right there. But
right.
You know, yeah. I mean, it's yeah. You can find me on YouTube pretty easily, and you guys can find me on Facebook as well. I'm on Facebook also. I have a few groups on Facebook of my own. They're all attached to my name. Yeah, and you can find me that way. And I release videos every week.
Yeah, and he's also got the vegan bodybuilding and nutrition page. There's a lot of research kind of compiled there on that page.
I'm no longer associated with them. That was a group that I had formed. I had actually founded with somebody else on Facebook, a friend of mine on Facebook, but it's been overrun by and taken over by SJWs. So literally, like, they thought police all the posts in there. I hear stories like from people who are currently still in there that they police comments, they'll stop comments, they'll erase comments. It's like freedom of speech does not exist there anymore, the way it did when I was part of it. I find it really funny because it's supposed to still be by the old moniker a evidence-based group, but yet these folks don't open their minds to evidence. So I don't recommend that vegan bodybuilding nutrition page. I do have my own pages on Facebook that I am currently associated with, and I do have my YouTube channel as well, which is probably the most prime place to talk with me. So YouTube. Okay.
Well, yeah, that's unfortunate that that happened, but you know,
yeah,
that's the zeitgeist of the times we're in. So.
Yeah, we are definitely in a time, and the thing is, it's not just that group. But there's a number of groups that have been vegan groups that have been taken over by these social justice warriors, where they fought police. They usurp control and they just take over, and then that's it. Like they co-opt these. this is why I'm so against intersectionality and veganism. I think that every movement should have its place. You shouldn't be bastardizing and mixing movements. So, I don't like the fact that veganism is being used as a anti-misogyny tool, or an anti-Islamophobia tool, or an anti-racism tool, or or any number of whatever other movements. Black Lives Matter. I actually think we use veganism as a Black Lives Matter vehicle. It's like it's not part of the definition. It's not part of the original intent, and it bastardizes they have their own movements. You don't fuck with veganism. It's like can't the animals have their own fucking movement too? It's like, piss off with that essentially. But these social justice warriors can't. Mentally, I think a lot of them are mentally ill. They simply can't.
Yeah, it's arrested development, I think.
It's definitely, actually, you hit the nail on the head. It's arrested development. It's shitty childhood upbringing, mental and emotional immaturity, and I think a rise in narcissism that has caused a social justice rise. Because if you look into a lot of their eyes, there's no one home. They're nuts. They're fucking nuts. Like if you watch some of these anti-Trump protests, you see, like where Antifa shows up. You look into the eyes of Antifa. A lot of them look like they're fucking zoned out on like one or more medications or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Nuts. They don't look normal. And they actually make the Trump supporters, like, even some of the most fervent Trump supporters look like angels, like, because they're so fucking whacked out of their mind. Like they just chanting and screaming and pounding drums in people's ears and blowing whistles and wearing pussy hats. And oh my God, I could go on and on about social justice warriors, but I think I've said enough at this point in time. It's not the point of this video, but yeah. I don't like veganism being bastardized like that, because it's not the intent of the movement. So
yeah, I honestly, like, half the time I don't even say I'm vegan because I don't want to be associated with.
Unfortunately, that's the other side of it now. You say that you're a vegan. See, I'm a right-wing vegan. I actually am right-wing, politically speaking, and I openly talk about that. And a lot of people are like, wow, there's actually right-wing vegans. And I'm like, actually, you'd be surprised. My channel has a lot of right-wing vegan viewers because they know that I'm right-wing. And you'd be surprised how many there are, but they just don't come out and talk about it a lot. Because unfortunately, veganism has become so associated with a social justice warrior whack job mentality that people think that if you're a vegan, you must be a far left progressive nut job. Who uses words like problematic and white privilege and shit like that. But it's absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
Veganism is for anybody. I don't care if you're centrist, you're right wing, you're left wing. It should be for anybody. It's apolitical. I did a video on this. There's nowhere in the definition of veganism to say this movement is only for right wing, or left wing, or whatever, or this veganism isn't for whites, or isn't for blacks, or isn't for Hispanics, or isn't for Native Americans, or isn't for whatever. It's like there's nowhere in the guidelines to say that you can't be these things. You could be a fucking Nazi and be vegan if you want to. And there's nowhere in the guidelines where it says you can't have be part of a different group or have a different point of view and still be vegan. Nowhere does it say that. So I find it absurd when they do this shit. And one of the things I'm noticing that intersectionals are doing now, which is really bad, and this is why I bring this point up, is they're saying I can quote at least 3 people. I showed one of my recent videos on veganism. It's not a political movement. I think it's called The Animals Don't Give a Fuck. I actually showed some screen caps of people saying that white veganism is shit. Implying that if you're a white person and you're vegan, you're doing it wrong. What?
Well, if you're a white person doing anything, it's
Well, nowadays, if you're a white person doing anything, you're doing it wrong. So apparently, right. So. But this is why I don't like this intersectionality crap, because the thing I found is that the biggest racists are these progressives. I mean, they're the biggest racists. It's like Antifa. They call themselves anti-fascist, yet they use fascism techniques to actually rally. It's a contradiction. It's a hypocrisy, and we're living in this really absurd, odd time.
Yeah. Carl Jung would have a lot to say about it, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. There's a lot of philosophers that would have something to say about the nutty time we're living in. But yeah, it's just let's keep veganism for the animals. Let's just stick to and let's set our political differences aside and focus on the animals, which inevitably is going to help the planet as well. And that's what veganism is about. It's about the animals first and foremost, and actually entirely. It's about the non-human animals, not eating them, not using their bodies for clothing, etc. That's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to.
All right. Well, thanks again, Cory, and I guess we'll tie things up here.
All right. Well,
And yeah, everybody go check out his YouTube channel and give it a like and a share.
All right.
So,
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks again. Bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.